So, I'm here with two members of the HYENAZ who will play tonight at the Strange Love Festival. Can you give a bit of an introduction about yourself? The HYENAZ, like how long have you existed? Where did it come from?
Well, we've been working together since 2013, and what we'll be presenting today, we're an electronic project and a performance project. So we kind of we're musicians, but we're also really interested in performing and interactivity in our performances.
Yeah, we have a diverse set of interests that we try to express through one project. So it's electronic music, and it's movement, performance. It's an attempt at different kinds of activism, and I guess also different kinds of video art as well.
Yeah.
Media art. Yeah.
And what we're presenting tonight is the development of our project called Critical Magic, which is kind of the second phase of our work. It's our second album, and it started actually, I guess, almost 3 years ago when we were invited to do this site-specific performance at the Museum of Modern Art in Seoul. Okay. And we were invited to collaborate with an artist, Sylvie Kim, and her partner, Nico Pelzer, to create this performance there. And at the time, we presented the very bare bones of critical magic, which was a kind of cleansing ritual inside the space of the museum. And most of it was done actually non-electronically, so it's a cappella voices and instruments that we had found from metal scrap and like created out of metal scrap. And this is actually the building blocks of what the entire electronic album became, or was built from. And yeah, do you want to explain a little bit about how it grew from that? It's a procession inside the museum.
It was like a performance like created for the museum. So like basically people came in and you led them on this wild critical magic tour or something.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it was called at the time Spectral Right.
Okay.
And in order to build the performance, we couldn't build the performance in Korea. We had to work in Germany at this feminist autonomous space outside of Berlin that we had the chance to do a kind of 2-week residency in. And so we were trying to visualize what it would be like to be in the museum. And so we assigned the spaces in the museum to the spaces along this farmland outside of Berlin. And so we did the procession ahead of time through these natural spaces. And this lent itself to thinking about different phases of water, because there was like a stream, there was a water mill, an old water mill that would like generate electricity. And it made us think a lot about this phase of water kind of coming from...
I couldn't concentrate.
No problem.
It's a vacuum. I'm crazy.
It made us think about like how water kind of comes from deep within the earth. It finds its way somehow out through the stone, like very, very slowly. It starts to come out of the stones and begins a small trickle of a stream, and then becomes bigger, and then perhaps it becomes manipulated by man and then like generates power and becomes stronger, and then the phase of evaporation and returning up into the sky and coming down again, and these kind of phase. So and the more we developed that, it became into also a metaphorical sense of how we might generate energy and like activism among people. That sometimes it's like kind of you're moving against these big structures of stone and like big institutional structures or architectural structures, so both real and figurative, to kind of like create a bit of a movement and to slowly like harness that movement into something that can be really energetic. And
we were looking for new metaphors, I guess, to describe the kind of political action might be possible now, because the old ones have kind of sort of seem to end up with a similar kind of outcomes, you know. Either disillusionment or authoritarianism. Like, you know, different political movements can easily evolve into being authoritarian movements themselves. So this kind of thing about like clash and explosion, all this kinds of these kinds of maybe metaphors to do with like combustion. Instead, we were looking for something else, and so that's how we kind of settled on water.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, it's not just a metaphor, because I mean, it's water works on us anyway, because we are comprised of water, and so in some sense it works as a metaphor. In some sense it works as something which is really, really real in a literal sense.
Yeah. So is that where the name like critical magic also comes from, like, or
that came from Adrienne, right prior to us beginning this like long process of creation. This has been, you know, really like 3 years, but prior to us going to this feminist autonomous space outside of Berlin, Adrienne found in her house this book called Prime Chaos by Phil Hine, which was kind of random at the time, but felt sort of like, it's a sign. What is this? You know, and it's a book about chaos magic, and
it really appealed to me because the person had such a deep theoretical, like reflective mode on magic, which appealed to me as someone who studied a lot of critical theory, and but they also like. They weren't sort of like an outsider, kind of like old school anthropologist, kind of like studying magic from the outside. There was someone who believed in magic in different expressions, and so I guess I was really impressed with the position they had come to.
Okay.
So
it's kind of like activist research or something.
Yeah, something.
Yeah.
It provided a framework for ritual, which came to us naturally anyway. I mean, like as we were performing, and in other projects, you know, there's like a performance is a kind of ritual. Like you come and you're like, hi, I'm the band, hi, you know, and like this in itself is kind of creating a ritual space, but there's other ways to do it as well. Like you can actually set a circle, or like as musicians, we would often say, you know, what do we want to happen tonight? Or like, how do we focus our energy together? And these are really simple ways that are actually like built on kind of a ritualistic framework.
Yeah.
And so the book formalized that even a bit more. And we formalized that a bit more. So we would, in what we do now is like we really set the circle, and we center ourselves, which means to like think about where we're located on the earth and the universe, but maybe also like contextually, like what are the issues facing our community at that moment, like how do we center ourselves, what's affecting us in which directions, and then we build our energy together and kind of harness this energy that like anyway I think is there anytime we have a concert or we're maybe just dancing together, there's energy. And so we thought, well, how can we kind of bring this together to focus energy, to focus maybe an intention for that night or for a larger political change or a larger change we want to see in ourselves or in the community. So that's what we've been kind of developing, and like every time is a bit of an experiment. Like for me, in a way, it was a reaction. I don't think consciously, but I think that there's this other kind of this like wasted German youth, you know, this like kind of idea that like I don't know of this sort of just where is all this energy going?
Apathetic or something.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of want to counter that a bit. You know, I feel like there is so much potential for doing something in these spaces, and also because it's a physical gathering, which I think is becoming more and more unusual, so we're so virtually oriented and oriented to understanding and knowing each other on the internet, but then we get into these rooms and like we've lost social skills, we've lost the ability to touch each other, we're still afraid of touching each other, we're afraid of making eye contact with each other, even more so perhaps than ever before, I don't know, and we're looking at these as opportunities to kind of see if what is the power still in physical touch, and like in physical interaction, and the ability to create change, or to see if these moments, like these.
It's a unique moment of focus.
Right.
It's a unique moment of people getting like a concert is a rare opportunity for people who don't attend a church or some other kind of religious gathering. It's a really rare moment where you gather with other people with a kind of common purpose, and you focus your energy on something. And I feel to some degree sometimes it's easy just to waste that opportunity, just if it's purely just kind of like just about drinking, or just about like being entertained and just being distracted for some hours, and then going back to whatever it was we were doing before, or even as a performer, just like distracting people and getting your fee, and then going back to your little life in between, and all the commercial bullshit of being a musician. It's a waste opportunity for performers and for audiences, and so we're trying to see what we can create in that environment, which is very fertile.
For you, it's basically like kind of harnessing that energy and like giving it back to other people rather than having your own activist message that you want to impose or communicate to people.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like it's we try to avoid it as much as possible, because it's not entirely possible, but we try to avoid it, trying to impose particular kind of like our goal for the event or whatever, and we explore ways that we can make that more personalized. But it's challenging. That's a challenging aspect of being in the music genre, maybe more so than the art genre. We don't locate ourselves there, but that's how we are kind of located, is that we have very little time and resources to build on our interactive goals, and to actually then to engage more with audiences. I would love to take 3 or 4 hours to work with people to create a certain kind of performance, which was, but in we don't have that opportunity, so we come in, we sound check, we set up, we perform. In that hour, we have to do what we can do. And
I mean, I would say we definitely don't come and have like a specific message. On the other hand, I would also say that I personally feel like there's questions that I have that drive me to want to like continue this sort of experimentally, which are like, one is, what can art do? Because there's a lot, I have these sort of personal sort of nihilistic questions about it, like, why do I continue to do art? What are the possibilities for social change through art? Is there any possibility social change through art? And if that, then what are we gonna do with it? And I feel like that really is burning for me, like, I don't wanna just create more music or more movement just like for its own sake.
But on the other side, I also feel very much that like the moment itself of the performance is a kind of end. Like it's not like I want like the performance to then is the means and then something else will happen like afterwards. I do want that. I do want social change, but I think the act, sometimes people getting together and celebrating like the possibility of human agency, or celebrating the possibility of solidarity, of intersectionality, celebrating like genderqueerness or whatever it is that we're like focusing our attention on. That in and of itself to me is the end, but I also take what you're saying as well, that like we want to we want.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it might sound contradictory or paradoxical, but it's
not.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah, I mean, at the same time, it's both, because it is that moment, which reminds me to like actually this interview I heard yesterday about like early house and where all of this raving and dance came from, or like you know, Blacks and Latino queers getting together and feeling like we're creating a safe space, right? So I think of like early house coming together, like this is the moment, this is the church, this is our church and our safe space, you know. So that exists, and like I want that moment perseveres. But I also feel like, you know, again, not to be like contradicting of that, but that I want, for me, it's this experiment as well to see like if we can kind of imagine our bodies as less bordered, you know, in this moment, like just our individual bodies, get out of our individualism, even out of our own high or whatever it is, and sort of think of ourselves as more a collective body in this space, at this venue. Will this translate to how we interact as bodies outside in the world, as nation states, or like as our sense of ourselves as like migrants, as like global citizens, you know. And
I hope in that sense that it just I don't think it'll totally transform even the way I interact with other bodies, or the way that every audience member would interact with others. But I do think that like the afterburn of a kind of performance like this is that it makes the contradictions that exist in my life as a kind of privileged white subject more kind of like more searing. Like it reminds me of a kind of utopian like aspect that I carry within me that like is not totally realized in the way I live my life, and also in the society which structures my life in many ways. And so it kind of makes me a little bit more hungry to actualize that utopian potential on the outside as well.
Yeah, because I guess in the performance in itself is a bit of like that actualization already or something.
Yeah.
So, and that's then what you wish to communicate to others. I mean,
so actualizing within that hour, within that space.
Yeah.
Although then again, there are also people who aren't there because they cannot be there. They don't have the economic means to be there.
Yeah.
They don't have the passport to even be in the country or whatever, you know. So like, then again, a lot of people are excluded from the performance. But still, I feel like in that moment, we managed to create in a limited way a certain kind of, at its best, a certain kind of like utopian form of acting, which only sustain that's the purpose of a ritual in a way. Like a ritual creates a space which cannot be so it's not so easily created in the everyday world. Like the sacred space is other to the profane space, and so in that sacred space we create this possibility like that exists like a flame for this hour or so. And then, you know, that flame is extinguished, we go back to our lives, but then I think I hope we bring a lot back to our lives from that experience.
Yeah.
So, and do you position yourself like quite clearly in like, I don't know, queer performance, or is that like, I don't know, more of like a circle where you feel happiest, or is
I mean, to be honest, like I would prefer to not necessarily, I mean, I definitely identify as queer, but I mean, I don't have any need to like only position myself in queer spaces, because part of that is, for me, is confronting this so-called other, and like I would say, like as a woman, growing up, the thing that I feared was probably this like cis male, white male, like I mean, if I'm just to try to create a kind of archetype, and this big guy, you know, I'm able in some spaces to actually confront bodies like that.
Yeah.
As also like as a, you know, as a body that like presents as female. And I don't go without my sexuality. I always present my sexuality as well. Like I'm a sexual body and I'm a sexualized body, and I confront that other body. And somehow in this performance, I'm able to do that in a way that like I'm shedding a lot of my fear of this other, you know, of this male energy or this sexist energy that I mean, this is like something that I grew up with, or like an internalized fear.
Yeah.
And I feel that like, and he as well, like, I feel that I've confronted or like been with bodies like that who I think there's some kind of transformation between the two of us, because those things are shed. And I don't feel that he's approaching me in the way that I would think he might, or vice versa.
Yeah, it's kind of
even
magic
when I
of
like put
performance.
my body against his. You know, it's like we're not seeing each other from the same perspective of sexuality that one might think. So for me, anyway, this is a queer moment, even if no matter what kind of sexuality we have.
Yeah.
This is a kind of queering of like our encounter, because and it like, I guess that's what I mean of like taking it from the space into like onto the street, because I think that some of our most powerful experiences of like disempowerment happen on the street, and like in these very localized moments of disempowerment, you know. So just one-to-one, and feeling, why does this person feel entitled over me? Why does this person feel they have the right to like disempower me? Or vice versa, right? And so if we can kind of confront these in smaller spaces, so that is to say, like, I wouldn't want to necessarily position myself in spaces where everybody already quote unquote knows what to expect. On the other hand, I also don't think that like the queer community has gotten rid of its own self-other kind of thing. I think there's a lot of hatred, unfortunately, from amongst queers, between queers, and queers towards quote unquote non-queers. I mean, so I don't know. I mean, any audience is a potential for transformation. But I wouldn't personally want to just stay within the queer community either. You know.
And for me, like, I don't think we have to like. We don't really necessarily have to choose between being in either of those things, and I hope that we don't have to. But I guess sometimes I feel like queer becomes like a kind of a cliche. Like queer night might just mean sort of like
male gay night or something.
Yeah, male gay night. It become a little bit like that. And it's a commercial label for a certain kind of, maybe like gay night with more glitter or something, you know, like, and so I mean, in that sense I don't want to be like kind of like stereotyped in a commercial segment, market segment. But you know, like when I was at university and I discovered queer theory, I felt really at home there, and still really carry all those influences with me. So like, and in that sense I still feel like I'm a queer artist because of those influences of being so like foundational to me.
So then, like, I don't know, because you mentioned you performed at like a museum, and then tonight it's gonna be like the queer festival. So I mean, do you really feel that very different vibe of like the audience? Did you get like, I don't know, with people who aren't necessarily familiar with queer, or like, I don't know, even with just not being the norm or something, like do they react differently than people who are, I don't know, kind of, I guess, more used to not thinking of themselves as the norm?
We had in Korea that are very specific, like a lot of families and people, like museum visitors. It was quite different to being in a club environment. But
I think not necessarily because of their positioning, because I don't know that I could speak that much about where they were positioned from, but more because of the layout of like the context of a museum and what that means.
And arriving in the afternoon and sort of wandering into the museum foyer and waiting for this performance to happen. It's just different positioning.
And watching, like, you know, now we really, I mean, this is one of the things that we try to do is like, we invite interlocutors, we invite a couple people to dance with us to create like even more of a bridge between the audience and us. but I mean, it's really about involving everybody that's in the room. So it's like if you're in the room, you're part of the ritual.
Yeah.
Whereas in the museum, we were performing and people were watching us, and it really was like they could have been there or they could have not been there. Which you know, I mean, is like I think that's why we developed out of that, because I don't think that format really makes so much sense.
A ritual from which everyone's an observer.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I mean that
we learned that lesson over time.
Yeah. But I also like we have had other times where we've presented this group ritual in spaces where one might think, oh, this audience is not queer, or they aren't maybe self-identified as queer. But I mean, I didn't feel that there was less involvement or less hunger to be involved. And I mean, I personally try to look at everybody as a queer body. You know, it's not really a...
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I think everybody is a queer body.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't want to anyway read anything onto them anyway.
Yeah.
And I feel like I was amazed at some of these towns in southern Italy where it was, for example, we were set up in these different shows that were not queer parties. They weren't like quote unquote queer audiences, and they were really engaged with us.
Deeply.
And like also a bit like not in their 20s and 30s, maybe in their 30s, 40s, 50s.
Yeah. We had a local kind of poet / magician who was taking us around the Murgia region. Murgia region. So he was also kind of key to that as well, because like people understood him as kind of like this like artist eccentric, and sort of gave them permission to kind of like get into this thing that we were doing, kind of. I know, I feel like we were lucky to have his presence to mediate that that thing, and then they were inside it because they like he somehow represents for the town. It's kind of like, I'm guessing it's kind of poetic conscience or something, you know. It's like through him we could interact with people who maybe leading quite for that region conventional lives or whatever. That was wonderful. And it was really wonderful. But I think internally different, like I think queer performance in Western Europe compared to sometimes queer party in going further east, sometimes where different queer communities really feel under attack. I think that sometimes I find those experiences really, really, like I'm really feel privileged to be able to connect with queers who are like putting their lives on the line to make these kind of events happen and everything, and
it becomes more urgent maybe.
It's very urgent. Well, it can be just as urgent. I don't want to kind of like, not that everyone's blasé or anything in Western Europe, but there's just been a couple of moments where it's felt like, wow, this is really, really important for us and for everyone who's there, like that the event is happening at all, kind of. And that's really, I feel really like, that's when I feel lucky. I feel like in my life I feel lucky when I have those opportunities, which, you know, like I didn't necessarily imagine I would have, you know, growing up in Australia or in the suburbs, you know, and
Wow, great. Well, I'm super excited for tonight. Just if some of the listeners want to check out your music, is there anywhere where they can go to, or?
You'll find it very easily on Spotify.
Okay.
If you want to use that, and on SoundCloud, it's there, and of course you can buy it on the usual platforms, Bandcamp, iTunes, and our website is HYENAZ.com. It's HYENAZ.com.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.